There's a reason why these teachings were buried, encrypted, and dismissed as myth for centuries. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth don't just describe reality, they reveal how to bend it. What if the chaos in your life isn't random, but the echo of a frequency you're unknowingly broadcasting? What if your energy has been hijacked by ancient forces that count on you, never understanding your own power? These aren't just mystical ideas, they're ancient instructions, encoded in symbols, meant to awaken those ready to break the illusion. Once you see what's hidden in these 13 teachings, reality won't look the same again. Don't just watch, feel this, because if this found you now, it means you're finally vibrating at the frequency to hear it. You've probably heard the phrase, everything is energy. But what if that phrase has become so overused? We've forgotten how dangerous and powerful it really is, because Thoth didn't say some things vibrate. He said all things do. The Emerald Tablets speak of energy as the unseen architect, the silent composer behind every moment you live, and at the core of that energy is vibration. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The life you're living right now isn't the only one available to you. It's just the one you're tuned to. Let that sink in. Just like a radio, your consciousness is constantly tuned to a specific frequency band, one that filters what you perceive, what you attract, and what you believe is possible. You're not seeing reality. You're seeing a slice of it, the slice that matches your current energetic signature. Your thoughts, they're not just brain activity, they're electromagnetic pulses resonating through your field. Your emotions, they carry measurable frequency signatures. Gratitude, compassion, love, they're coherent, organized, harmonious. Anger, shame, fear, they're fragmented, chaotic, heavy. Science is just beginning to confirm what Thoth encoded thousands of years ago, that what appears to be solid matter is actually 99.99999% space, a buzzing cloud of probability held together by vibration. Atoms don't exist in a fixed state. They exist as waves of potential, collapsing into form only when observed. So here's the terrifying beauty of it all. You're not just a person having experiences, you're a vibrational projector, and whatever frequency you hold becomes your lens, your mirror, your reality. Most people live in loops of static, unknowingly replaying the same emotional notes over and over. That stuck feeling? That's not life being unfair. It's your field telling you you're out of tune. And here's where it gets wild. Thoth didn't view spiritual awakening as a belief system. He saw it as a resonance shift. He wrote of ascending through the circles of fire, metaphors for states of vibration that activate when you master your energy. Each time you rise in frequency, you become capable of perceiving more truth, more beauty, more reality. And each time you fall, you forget who you are. You become hypnotized by form. You mistake noise for signal. But you don't need crystals, gurus, or mantras to begin retuning. You need presence, you need breath. You need silence, the original sound, the 0-point frequency from which all others emerge. Because in the silence, you remember your power isn't in controlling the external. It's in calibrating your internal. Everything is vibration. And when you shift yours, even slightly, the universe moves to meet you. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. That single idea has more power than 1,000 affirmations. But only if you understand what it actually means. Your life right now, everything in it, is a reflection of your current vibrational identity. Not your goals, not your vision board, not your highest potential self, but your actual internal state. The frequency you embody when no one is watching. This is the frequency that tunes your perception. It acts like a magnetic field, pulling in the people, experiences, and synchronicities that match it. And the Emerald Tablets of Thoth? They didn't sugarcoat this. They revealed a stunning truth. Reality is not objective. It is programmable, but only from within. Consciousness is not some passive awareness floating through space. It's an active sculptor, an invisible artist, constantly reshaping the clay of existence according to the pattern of your dominant vibration. Let me give you an unsettling thought. If your outer world feels chaotic, what is your inner world broadcasting? Because here's the paradox, no one tells you. Most people think they're conscious, but they're actually running a pre-programmed frequency loop they didn't choose. Childhood trauma, cultural conditioning, emotional suppression. All of it becomes a signature, a kind of vibrational fingerprint, and it dictates what parts of reality you can access. This is why change feels so hard. Because until you shift your consciousness, life will find new ways to repeat the old story. So how do you change the channel? It begins with awareness. Start by observing your automatic emotional responses, the frustration, the defensiveness, the lack. Don't judge them, just watch, because the moment you observe a pattern, you're no longer in it, you're above it. And this is the secret Thoth whispered through metaphor. The observer is the programmer. You're not just the one experiencing life, you're the one encoding it. And when you begin to shift your inner state, not through force, but through awareness, the external world starts to bend around your new frequency. It's subtle at first, a coincidence, a strange sense of peace, a conversation you didn't expect. But then, reality begins to echo you in ways that feel impossible to ignore. You'll meet people vibrating where you're going, not where you've been. You'll start noticing signs that feel like the universe responding. Because it is, and you'll realize something profound. The greatest lie you were ever told was that the world was happening to you, when the truth is, you've been the transmitter all along. If thoughts are the blueprint of reality, emotions are the electricity that brings it to life. This is where most spiritual seekers get stuck. They try to think positively, recite affirmations, visualize outcomes, but inside, they're vibrating with fear, doubt, guilt, or shame. And then they wonder why nothing shifts. But the Emerald Tablets speak in symbols that modern science is just beginning to decode. It's your emotional frequency, not your mental wish list, that magnetizes your reality. Let that hit you. You can say, I am abundant 100 times. But if your emotional field is humming with unworthiness or anxiety, that's what the universe will mirror. Why? Because the universe is not listening to your words. It's listening to your resonance. Every emotion you feel broadcasts a field, a measurable energy signature. Gratitude, it's coherent, smooth, harmonized like sacred geometry in motion. Anger, it's chaotic, distorted. It scrambles your field like static on a frequency band, blocking you from receiving what's already trying to reach you. Thoth described emotions as vibratory gates, thresholds that either open you to higher realms or lock you inside dense, repetitive loops. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how the more you dwell on lack, the more lack seems to find you? Or how one moment of deep presence or love seems to shift the entire energy of your day, even your environment? That's not random, that's field entrainment. Your emotional state doesn't just affect you, it affects the quantum soup you're swimming in. It influences others, it shapes time, it opens portals. Here's the twist. Emotions are not enemies to be suppressed. They are invitations. Your sadness is trying to show you where your energy is leaking. Your anger is pointing to a boundary you're not honoring. Your fear is a signal, not to run, but to recalibrate. When you begin to feel consciously, instead of reactively, your emotions become your allies, magnetic forces that align your frequency with your highest self. And the key emotion above all? Gratitude, not the performative kind, the real cellular kind, the I see the miracle in this breath kind. Gratitude collapses the illusion of separation. It tells your body, your field, your entire energetic being, I am aligned with abundance. I already have everything I need. And when you feel that, the universe rushes in to reflect it, because emotion is the language of the field, not just a reaction to reality, but a tool to create it. Why does chaos follow some people like a shadow, while others seem to move through life with a strange kind of grace, as if reality is bending gently in their favor? Thoth gave the answer thousands of years ago, buried in symbols. Your outer world is the mirror of your inner balance, not in a poetic sense, but in a precise vibrational sense. The Emerald Tablets describe a world governed by harmonic resonance. Everything outside you is entrained, unconsciously, by the dominant energy within you. If your inner field is tangled, conflicted, disjointed, then your life will reflect that dissonance back at you through delayed messages, unexpected breakdowns, distorted relationships, friction in places that should be flowing. Why? Because the universe doesn't punish, it reflects. It teaches through mirroring. Most people try to fix their lives by rearranging the external, the job, the partner, the home, the schedule. But unless they shift the internal blueprint, they'll simply recreate the same energetic pattern with different faces. It's like trying to fix a mirror by polishing the reflection instead of the lens. Here's the deeper truth. Balance isn't something you achieve. It's something you return to, because your natural state, underneath the noise, is one of pure harmony. Think of a still body of water. When it's calm, it reflects perfectly. When it's agitated, the reflection distorts. Now think of your mind, your emotions, your breath. How often are they calm enough to reflect truth clearly? We live in a culture that glorifies hustle, reaction, speed. But Thoth, like many other initiates of ancient wisdom, pointed in the opposite direction. He wrote of stillness as the gateway to wisdom. He taught that to access higher knowledge, you must first harmonize your inner currents. That's why initiates of old were trained in breath, in posture, in silence. Not because it looked spiritual, but because without energetic coherence, you can't tune into the deeper frequencies where real guidance lives. So how do you begin to return to balance? Not by forcing peace, but by watching yourself with compassion. When you notice tension, pause. When you feel reactive, breathe. When the mind spirals, anchor to your body, because every moment you reclaim presence, you dissolve distortion. And in that stillness, you begin to realign with the deeper rhythms of the universe. Harmony is not passive. It's an act of conscious surrender. And once your inner world returns to center, your outer world will echo that center back to you in ways that feel nothing short of miraculous. There's a silent current flowing through you right now. You can't see it. You've probably never been taught how to feel it, but it's dictating your clarity, your vitality, your emotions, even your ability to access intuition. This current is your life force, and it flows through what ancient mystics and yogis called energy channels, sacred rivers within the subtle body. In the East, they're known as nadis. In esoteric Egyptian tradition, they're the serpentine pathways of light Thoth described, twin currents rising up the spine, weaving like DNA, Ida and Pingala. One carries lunar energy, cooling, intuitive, feminine. The other solar, activating direct masculine. And between them runs the Sushumna, the central channel, the path of awakening. But here's the part no one told you. Your frequency is only as high as your flow is clear. You can meditate. You can read the Emerald Tablets. You can try to raise your vibration. But if your channels are blocked by trauma, stress, unresolved emotion, energetic stagnation, your light gets trapped. Thoth knew this. He wrote of cleansing the inner fire, of preparing the temple of the body to become a vessel for higher currents. This wasn't symbolic, it was vibrational. Your thoughts alone won't clear your channels. You need practices that move energy. That's why breathwork works, why somatic shaking works, why deep stillness, stretching, or dancing works. Not as performance, but as liberation. Every time you move with awareness, you untangle the cords inside you. You shake loose old emotional residue embedded in your nervous system. You create space for new frequencies to flow in. Let's be clear. Vital energy isn't just about feeling good. It's your antenna. When your system is flowing, you become receptive, able to feel intuitive pings, messages, signs. You begin noticing synchronicities not because they weren't there before, but because now you're tuned to them. Most people are trying to manifest with clogged circuitry. They're aiming for clarity while carrying years of blocked energy inside their body. It doesn't work. Think of a garden hose. When it's kinked, the water struggles, sputters, weakens. Straighten the hose, and suddenly, flow. Your body is the same. The ancient teachings of Thoth weren't about escaping the body. They were about activating it as a temple, a conductor of higher light, a bridge between realms. So if you want to shift your frequency, start by moving your energy. Not someday, today, with breath, with movement, with intention. Because when your channels are open, your life becomes a conduit for the divine. If you could see your voice, if every word you spoke left a visible imprint on the quantum field, would you speak the same way? The Emerald Tablets reveal a truth modern science is only beginning to prove. Sound doesn't just express reality, and it sculpts it. Thoth referred to sound as the great creative fire, not metaphor, literal. He spoke of ancient tones, vibrational keys that could shift matter, open portals, heal bodies, even break time. And now we know he was right. Welcome to the science of cymatics, the study of sound made visible. When certain frequencies are played through a surface covered in particles, sand, water, dust, those particles organize themselves into complex geometric patterns. The higher the frequency, the more intricate and harmonious the pattern becomes. Let that sink in. Sound creates form. Your voice has shape. Your words have weight. Every syllable you speak sends a wave into the field, a ripple of vibration that rearranges particles, thoughts, emotions, even possibilities. So here's the question: what are you building with your voice? Because most people speak unconsciously. They repeat inherited language, complaint, fear, sarcasm, self-deprecation, without realizing these are not just expressions. They're spells. That's why it's called spelling. Every time you say, "I'm always broke," you're casting a vibrational program. Every "I'm just not lucky," every "this always happens to me," is an instruction to the field. And the field, it listens. It's listening right now. But the inverse is also true. Your voice, when aligned with emotion and clarity, becomes a tuning fork for reality. Mantras aren't magic because of the words themselves. They're powerful because of resonance. Chanting tones like Om or Are or ancient vibrational syllables shift your nervous system, open your energy channels, and send clear signals into the fabric of the quantum field. Thoth spoke of vibrations sung in harmony with the divine flame. He wasn't talking about music for entertainment. He was talking about sonic geometry, language as technology. The Egyptian temples were built to echo sound in sacred ratios. Chambers were tuned to frequencies that could induce altered states, expand consciousness, or heal the body. Even modern experiments show that frequencies like 528 Hz or 432 Hz have measurable effects on water, DNA, and brain waves. So when you speak, chant, or even hum, you are programming water. Your own body is 70% water. What happens when you speak into that? You shift your inner structure, you harmonize your field, you activate latent intelligence in your cells. But most importantly, you begin to remember that your voice is not just a tool. It's a weapon, a wand, a tuning fork. And the more You speak from alignment. The more precise, clean, intentional your sound becomes, the more life begins to echo back in kind, because the universe responds not to noise, but to resonance. You've probably seen it before, carved into ancient temples, etched onto crystals, tattooed onto bodies, jewelry, journals, the flower of life. At first glance, it's beautiful. Elegant circles overlapping with mathematical perfection. But that's not why Thoth encoded it in the temples of Egypt and beyond. He wasn't leaving behind an art piece. He was leaving behind a map, a vibrational key, because the flower of life is not just a symbol, it's a frequency made visible, a snapshot of the blueprint behind all creation. Modern science calls this field the zero-point energy field, or the quantum vacuum. Ancient mystics called it the Akash, the great sea, the womb of all things. And the flower of life is the fingerprint of that field. It encodes everything, the structure of DNA, the patterns of magnetic fields, the ratios in musical scales, even the way galaxies spiral. But here's what most people miss. The flower doesn't just exist outside of you. It's inside you, etched into your energy field, encoded in your cells, whispering the memory of what you are and why you came. Thoth taught that creation emerges from vibration, from the interplay of sound and geometry. He said, "From the light comes the word, and from the word comes the form." The flower of life is that form, the sacred geometry of vibration itself. So what happens when you meditate on it? You begin to resonate with the universal pattern. Your energy field starts to remember the original frequency of coherence, balance, and harmony. You see, every trauma, every stress, every belief of separation distorts your field, like throwing stones into still water. But the flower of life, it's a vibrational corrective lens. When you attune to it, visually, mentally, energetically, you recalibrate your system to the divine blueprint. This is why ancient initiates meditated with geometry, not as art, but as technology. They didn't just look at the flower of life. They entered it. They visualized its patterns moving through their chakras, syncing with their breath, aligning every cell, organ, and layer of consciousness. This wasn't symbolic. It was transformational. And when you do the same, even just for a few minutes, something starts to shift. Mental fog clears, emotional storms settle. You feel a strange sense of rightness, as if the pieces are falling back into place, because they are. The flower of life is not a concept to believe in. It's a field to remember, a shape your soul already recognizes, a code that says you are not separate from the universe, you are its living pattern. And the more you resonate with that pattern, the more your frequency aligns with the natural order of reality. You stop resisting, you stop grasping, you start dancing, in sync with the very rhythm that creates worlds. There is a fire inside you. It doesn't burn like wood. It doesn't give light like a candle. But it's there, glowing, pulsing, waiting. This isn't metaphor. It's one of the core teachings of the Emerald Tablets, that within the human, being lives a sacred flame, and how you relate to it determines the trajectory of your life. The Thoth called it the fire of creation, a force placed within man to transmute darkness into light, ignorance into knowing, pain into power. Most people never learn to work with this fire. They suppress it, they fear it. They misinterpret it as anxiety, restlessness, rage, or shame. But here's the alchemical secret. The same fire that can destroy you is also the fire that can free you. When repressed, this inner fire festers. It manifests as inner turmoil, self-sabotage, emotional volatility, chronic fatigue, illness. It's like energy knocking on the walls of your being, begging to move, and being denied exit. But when you choose to face it, to feel it, to breathe into it, something ancient awakens. The flame begins to rise. This is the path of transmutation, not escape, not denial, but alchemical embodiment. Thoth spoke often of the purifying fire, not as punishment, but as initiation. This is the same fire the ancient alchemists symbolized as the furnace, the crucible of transformation. In spiritual terms, it's the part of you that can hold your shadow without running and burn it clean. Your inner fire is the source of your creative power. It's the current behind Kundalini energy, the ignition point of higher awareness, the spark that lights the flame of ascension. But here's the truth no one wants to hear. Transmutation hurts. At first, because it requires confronting what you've buried. The grief, the guilt, the unconscious programming that shaped you, and yet in that fire, you begin to reclaim yourself. You stop seeing pain as the enemy and start seeing it as raw, dense energy, waiting to be refined into light. Like a phoenix, you allow yourself to burn, not into ashes, but into clarity. That's the secret of all mystics, all initiates, all awakened beings. They didn't escape the fire. They became it. Because when you learn to hold your own intensity, to stay with the heat, the friction, the discomfort, you don't get consumed, you get forged. A new self is born, not one that avoids darkness, but one that radiates so powerfully it transforms everything it touches. This is what Thoth meant when he said, "From fire comes the light." The flame purifies all that is base. Your emotions are not in the way. Your pain is not a mistake. Your fire is not dangerous. It is sacred. It is the engine of rebirth. And when you embrace it fully, you don't just raise your vibration, you become untouchable, because what has been transmuted can no longer control you. Everyone wants the light, but few are willing to face the shadow it casts. From the Emerald Tablets to Hermetic philosophy, one principle echoes again and again, and yet it's the one most often ignored. All things are dual. Opposites are not enemies. They are partners in the dance of consciousness. Thoth wrote, "In all things there is polarity. Two sides of the same coin, different only in degree." This means good and evil, light and dark, joy and pain. They are not separate entities. They are frequencies on the same spectrum of vibration. And here's where the alchemy begins. If you try to ascend by rejecting darkness, by bypassing your wounds, suppressing your anger, or pretending to be high vibe, you create internal division, and division lowers frequency. Why? Because anything you suppress gains power in your subconscious. It becomes a hidden vibration, one you're broadcasting without awareness. You can't fake frequency. The universe isn't responding to your smile. It's responding to your energetic coherence. The true path to ascension, Thoth taught, is through integration, to acknowledge the pain, to hold the shadow with the same presence you hold the light, to realize that your darkest emotions are not proof of failure. They are raw material waiting to be transmuted. Let's break this down. Pain and joy are not separate forces. They are entangled frequencies. When you feel pain deeply, you expand your capacity to feel joy fully. The more darkness you can hold without being consumed, the more light you are capable of anchoring without floating away. This is why polarity is sacred, not as punishment, but as a mechanism of evolution. Thoth described the realms of light and shadow as necessary gates, tests of perception. He didn't teach escape. He taught mastery. He warned of those who pursued only the light, for in doing so, they became blind to the unseen forces shaping them. True power comes from seeing both, from walking into the underworld of your psyche and saying, "I will not reject you, I will not fear you, I will make you conscious." And when you do that, the shadow loses its grip, not because it disappears, but because it becomes illumined. This is the principle of polarity at its highest form, reconciliation. The moment you stop resisting one side and begin to harmonize both, your frequency elevates naturally, not because you forced it, but because you became whole. You are not here to eliminate your humanity. You are here to divinize it, to feel deeply, to love fiercely, to grieve honestly, to stand calmly in both fire and silence. This is ascension, not escape from the dual world, but mastery of it. You've been taught to see time like a train track, a straight line, past behind you, future ahead, and the present, just a fleeting dot in between. But what if that model isn't just wrong? What if it's the very illusion that's been limiting your reality? Thoth didn't describe time as linear. He described it as spiraling, fluid, vibrational. He wrote of circles within circles, of the great wheel of time, an endless looping of probabilities, patterns, and parallel. Selves all existing simultaneously, awaiting one thing, your frequency. Because time doesn't just move forward, it bends, it stretches, it pulses in response to consciousness. And that means the past is not gone. The future is not fixed. They are vibrational fields, energetic territories that you access depending on your current state of awareness. This isn't theory. This is what physicists now call the block universe, where all moments in time exist at once, but you only experience the one you're tuned to. Let that sink in. What you call now is just one coordinate in an infinite matrix of possibility. And every time you shift your internal state, your frequency, you move, not through space, but through timelines. This is why déjà vu happens, why some people seem to manifest instantly while others are trapped in repeat loops. They're not better manifestors. They're operating from a different layer of the field. And here's what Thoth taught the initiates, what only the inner circles were allowed to explore. That time can be entered, not with machines, but with the mind, with stillness, with frequency coherence. He taught that deep meditation wasn't about relaxation. It was a tool to access alternate timelines. He spoke of stepping beyond the veil, not as a poetic metaphor, but as an energetic technique. When your mind becomes still, when your heart becomes coherent, when your breath syncs with your intention, you stop running through time, and time begins to respond to you. This is why during heightened states of awareness, moments of awe, near-death experiences, trauma, or deep presence, time seems to warp, slow down, speed up, disappear, because it's not a constant, it's a mirror. You're not a prisoner of time, you're a navigator within it. So the real question is, what version of the future are you aligning with right now? Are you replaying the energetic signature of past pain and therefore living in echoes? Or are you choosing a new emotional tone and therefore shifting to a timeline where that tone is the foundation? Because every emotion is a tuning fork. And every tuning fork points to a different potential reality. You don't need to chase your dreams. You need to match them, because time is not chasing you. It's responding to you, bending around the signal you emit. And when you understand that, you stop being a character in your life. You become the editor of the script. Every thought you've ever had, every emotion you've felt in silence, every intention, every word, every secret still exists, not metaphorically, energetically. The Emerald Tablets hint at something mystics across traditions have spoken of, a vast, invisible intelligence that stores everything. Thoth called it the Hall of Records, a vibrational archive that echoes through all space and time. Modern physics calls it the zero-point field or the quantum vacuum, an all-pervading energy field that contains the information blueprint of the universe. Mystics call it the Akashic field. And here's what Thoth revealed: you are not separate from it. You are both a contributor and a receiver. Every moment you're writing into this field with your vibration and reading from it with your intuition. Think of the Akash as the cloud storage of reality. But instead of data stored on servers, it's stored in frequency. And instead of passwords, access is granted through resonance. That déjà vu you couldn't explain. That dream that showed you something that hadn't yet happened. That sudden knowing that came out of nowhere. That wasn't random. That was a download, a retrieval from the field, because when your energy becomes coherent, aligned, open, calm, you begin to sync with the information layer of existence. You begin to remember, not with the brain, but with the soul. This is why the Akash is often referred to as the Book of Life, not because it judges you, but because it holds every vibrational imprint you've ever created and every possible version of who you could become. You don't escape your past by ignoring it. You transcend it by repatterning your field, by writing new signals into the matrix. Thoth taught that memory is not just something inside your brain, it's everywhere. And when you learn how to still the mind, open the heart, and focus the will, you gain access to memories that don't belong to this lifetime, to knowledge that seems to rise from nowhere, to symbols, insights, languages your conscious mind was never taught. Because the Akashic field doesn't care about time, it cares about frequency match. This is how ancient initiates pulled blueprints from future technologies, how prophets foresaw coming changes, how children sometimes speak truths beyond their years. They weren't guessing, they were tuned in. And here's the key Thoth left behind. Your frequency determines what part of the field you access. If you vibrate in guilt, you pull from timelines of guilt. If you vibrate in peace, you tap into higher knowledge. If you enter states of gratitude, forgiveness, deep presence, you open doors you didn't know existed. So if you feel blocked, lost, stuck, don't look outward. Look at the data you're broadcasting, because every moment is a query, and the universe is always answering. When you change your vibration, you change what the field reflects back, and that's when life starts speaking to you with stunning precision, as if it always knew who you were becoming because it did. You've been trained to believe that the universe is like a machine, cold, mechanical, indifferent. Push the right buttons and maybe you'll get the result you want. That belief is the foundation of most people's suffering, the feeling that life is something they must manipulate, manage, or hack in order to get what they desire. But Thoth knew better. He taught that the universe is not a machine, it is a mirror, and it is reflecting you. Not your words, not your goals, not even your actions, but your deepest, most consistent vibration. You see, we live under the illusion that we're reacting to life, when in truth, life is reacting to us. Whatever you believe is out there is actually showing you what's been stored in here. Every delay, every synchronicity, every trigger, all of it is feedback, a vibrational echo of your inner state. But most people miss this. Because the mirror of the universe is delayed, you feel lack today, but you don't see its reflection. Until a week later, in a relationship, a bank account, an unexpected breakdown. So you think, why is this happening to me? But the real question is, what was I emitting when the seeds of this moment were planted? This changes everything, because now you're no longer a victim of circumstance. You're a co-creator in a field of intelligent reflection. Thoth warned the initiates, do not mistake the world for something solid. It is malleable. It is alive. It is responding, not to what you wish, but to what you believe and embody. The mirror reflects your truth, not your mask. This is why people who chase love from a place of emptiness often attract rejection. Why those who seek abundance while vibrating in lack find themselves always just scraping by. Why people who fear abandonment keep facing betrayal, not because life is cruel, but because the signal they send is being faithfully mirrored. So, how do you shift the mirror? Not by shouting new affirmations at it, but by changing the frequency of your presence. When you start vibrating in trust, life begins to trust you back. When you start vibrating in joy, opportunities begin appearing that match that joy. When you embody self-worth, not force it, but truly feel it, the world starts to reflect that worth in the people and events it sends your way. The mirror doesn't lie, it doesn't judge, it just reflects. And this is the radical responsibility of the spiritual path, to stop blaming the image and start shifting the vibration behind it, because life isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. And when you realize that, every moment becomes a chance to refine the reflection. Throughout history, humans have searched for God in the stars, in temples, in sacred texts and secret rites, in gurus, angels, and distant cosmic forces. But Thoth, in his eternal voice carved into emerald, left behind a whisper meant only for those who were finally ready to hear it. You are the very thing you've been searching for, not in an egoic, self-worshipping way, but in the quiet truth that divinity is not something you reach toward, it is something you remember. We've been conditioned to look outside ourselves for power, to treat the divine as something separate, distant, conditional. But the Emerald Tablets make it clear, God is not a being, God is a state of frequency, a level of consciousness so pure, so luminous, so whole, that it transcends identity and yet lives within every identity. This is the mystery Thoth encoded. Man is in the process of becoming God, not because man must conquer, but because man must remember. Underneath the layers of trauma, identity, conditioning and survival mechanisms is a field of consciousness that has never been touched by pain, never been broken, never forgotten the original blueprint. That field is you. You are not a mistake. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are the light buried beneath the forgetting, the sacred spark encoded in every cell of your being. And every frequency shift, every act of courage, every moment of stillness you've touched has been guiding you home to this truth, that the gods of old were never outside of you. They were archetypes, mirrors of the dormant potential within. Thoth wasn't worshipped because he demanded power. He was honored because he pointed the way back to yours. You don't need a permission slip to awaken. You don't need to be chosen. If you're hearing this now, it's because a deeper part of you already is awake, already knows, and now you're standing on the threshold, because once you realize that you are the temple, that your body is the altar, your breath the prayer, your frequency the offering, you stop seeking and you start embodying. The journey doesn't end here. This isn't a conclusion, it's a return to wholeness, to sovereignty, to the knowing that the divine has always been within you, watching quietly, waiting for the moment you would look in the mirror and finally say, there you are. If you made it here, you weren't just watching a video. You were remembering something ancient, something your soul already knew, but the world taught you to forget. The Emerald Tablets weren't meant to be studied like textbooks. They were meant to be felt, decoded through the vibration of direct experience. And now you've touched that frequency. So pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, which of these 13 lessons hit the deepest chord within you? And what would your life look like if you fully embodied just one of them today? Let that awareness guide you, not as pressure, but as initiation, because this isn't the end. This is where the real journey begins. If this transmission resonated with you, subscribe for more awakenings like this. Like this video to help others find it. Leave a comment. What's the one insight you'll carry into your life starting today? And most importantly, share this video with friends or family who are ready to remember who they really are. You didn't find this video by accident. You found it because your frequency finally aligned with its message, and once you've seen behind the veil, you can't go back, but you can go forward, with clarity, with power, and with the knowing that the divine isn't somewhere out. There, it's been inside you all along. See you in the next transmission.